Hey, I'm Lance Phillips. Today is National Sunglasses Day. Don't judge me. These are our news anchor Nicole Stilger's sunglasses.
I'm Josh Ryan, and way to throw your fellow coworker under the bus.
They're her sunglasses, dude. I can't be responsible for how I look in them, which was flat out bad.
You can be responsible for putting them on your face, though.
But I was just responsible for taking them off my face as well.
That's true.
I don't see you wearing sunglasses. Natural. Even Albert's wearing them.
No, because we're indoors, and I don't have a hangover like Albert does.
So it's always sunny in Doucheville. What's up? Lance Phillips, Josh Ryan. Gloves are off.
Yes.
Got a good show on tap.
Yeah.
Chelsea Steinle is going to join us in the second segment. Talk a little Junior Rebel swim.
As well as a national championship that she won, being a mom while playing college sports.
I feel like we're going to talk about this for the remainder of time.
Yeah, it's going to be.
It's never going to go away.
No. Well,
unless they win again, and then we'll just talk about that one forever.
Oh, I'm looking forward to their run. Trust me, their run is going to be something this year again.
It'd be good to chat with her. I'm looking forward to getting her in studio. We don't have a ton of women in all the time. It seems like it's a sausage-dominated show, but we'll change that for today.
Changing one step at a time.
Let's go to our first topic, which is the Canadian Professional Chuckwagon Association Pro Tour Week 4 at Wainwright. The Wainwright Stampede happened this past weekend. And after a little bit of a debacle at the end of day 4, it turned out that Wayne Knight was the show winner, with Dallas Dick winning the dash. But the question here is, BJ Carey had a pretty good weekend. Is he the guy that's kind of creeping in there? Do you see him falling into that top 4 by the end of the year?
Well, I mean, he certainly has an opportunity to. Right now, he only sits 4 points back of 4th place, and that's with having had first taken away from him. Not that it was unjust, but taken away from him, right? So he's right on the cusp. Not a great way, I guess, to see the weekend end. You never want a result that way, but it was what it was. There is potential there for a bit of interference. The protest was made, and as a result, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, he's this close already. After his first heat, he's been progressively better the rest of the year, basically.
One thing that's happening with him is he's becoming more consistent. His outfit is becoming, his point wagon is becoming more consistent. I mean, you look at his times from the first 3 days of aggregate on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 104.12, 104.05, 104.61. And those times are starting to drop. Now, obviously, different tracks make different times, but the times overall are starting to get smaller. And he's crept, as you mentioned, into that top 5 right now. And he's a guy, I think, to watch out for. He really is. His horses are really running well, and everything seems to be kind of going BJ Carey's way. Yeah,
and we kind of did overlook him when we were talking about a top 4, top 3 earlier in the year. But as you said, he's climbed rapidly. And even that last run, again, 2-second penalty, that's an even faster time if maybe he turns a little bit better there. One of the surprises also, Jamie Labicane's kind of dropped down a little bit. He's now down to 8th position after being in that top 4.
Yeah, and he's a guy I still see. He's not out by any stretch. I mean, none of these guys are out of it by any stretch.
Time left
but he's still a guy I see kind of creeping up there. The guy's going to be tough is Chris Molley. I mean, he consistently is sitting at the top of the standings. He's going to be a tough guy to overtake.
Yeah, since the first heat of the year, he's been on his game, and he has a bit of a point buildup as well, which could hold him till we get to the end of the year. On the other side of sports, we go to lacrosse, where the Extreme haven't had much of a buildup from their start of the year. They've been very inconsistent, but in more recent days, they've been pretty good. Tough loss to Cold Lake last week. Now this week, another 2 games against Cold Lake and Vermilion, getting wins against both teams and a dominant win over Vermilion. What does this say about where they could finish the season, particularly come playoffs?
The biggest thing for this team right now has been the fact that they've had trouble fielding a full team. They had a full 18 out on Friday's game. They've won 3 out of 4. They beat Cold Lake handily, I might add, in Cold Lake. This team is starting to, for lack of a better cliche, fire on all cylinders. They really are. And so their first match is against the Edmonton Wizards, a winless team this season, and they will crush the Wizards on July 8th and 9th at home at the Civic. They will crush them. Then they're going to be up against Cold Lake or Sherwood Park. More than likely, they end up playing Cold Lake again. A beatable team. And if they can field their full 18 and they can stay the course as they've been lately, they're in great shape.
The question is, can they stay that course? Yes, injury has been problematic, but consistency has been also problematic. Guys not taking care of themselves on the defensive end, maybe losing a bit of the aggressiveness on the pick and roll side, though certainly not this last 2 weeks. They've been very solid on that front. The most encouraging thing, I think, is playing a team like Vermilion, not quite as strong as Cold Lake, but having no real lulls in that game and just taking care of business and winning in really dominant fashion. That bodes well, obviously, for this first playoff matchup. But then can they translate that success into the next week and that consistency into the next week?
The only lull I would say that happened in that game is the first period was an absolute atrocity, a sloppy mess from both teams. So they kind of got lucky that Vermilion was sloppy as well. But, you know, they got through it. They picked up their pace in the second period and routed them essentially 7-1. I like where this team is. I really like where they're at. They had lost Brad Gorgon for the remainder of the season due to a knee injury where he decided he would longboard beside a car and then was run over by said car. So they're out without him, but I think they're in good shape going into the rest of the postseason. They'll be fine. Obviously, the Wizards won't even present a task to them.
Yeah, the one challenge could be handling the opposing crowd in a playoff game. That could be a dynamic they're not quite used to.
So sure that Cold Lake is even going to present that sort of offer to them. That's for sure. Okay. The Northwest Prairie Pirates had a great weekend last weekend. Not this past weekend. No, won 2 games against Regina fairly handily. Then this weekend ended up getting semi-stomped in the first series against the Saskatoon Diamondbacks. Followed that up with 2 losses, very close losses to the third place Saskatoon Cubs. Josh Ryan, where do you see this team after this weekend? Are they on the right track?
I don't know that they are, unfortunately. I mean, you look at the results, 2 bad performances against the Diamondbacks and ultimately some tough losses against the Cubs. It still comes down to what we've talked about basically the last couple weeks. Errors at inopportune times and not consistency from their pitching. Until they can get that consistency on limiting those errors, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to get huge game-breaking plays. It simply means do the little things well. Get on base, take care of fielding, take care of long flies, all that kind of simple stuff that kills teams when they don't do it.
You cannot commit 13 errors in a 2-game series and expect to win. You cannot. That being said, the last time they played the Diamondbacks, they scored a total of 2 runs. They were shelled. I believe it was 15-2 and 12-0 they lost. And this past weekend, scores 10-5 and 15-7. Against the Cubs, 7-4, 6-5. They are hitting the ball. And this is one area that's really improved for this team. They're hitting the ball really, really well. And that is going to amount to more wins. They cannot commit errors. No. That's the biggest problem they're facing.
And that's ultimately the problem you see in that result. Still allowing 15 runs, still having 10 runs. And that's the difference. As much as they are hitting the ball well, they're getting 3 or 4 more runs a game. They're not really allowing less than they did earlier in the year. And that's really what's going to be the roadblock for them until the end of the season, as they only have a 4-14 record.
They have the tools. They have the talent. When you see these kids play, they have the talent. They have the coaching. Josh Herbach-South is really a fantastic coach.
Absolutely.
He's excellent what he's doing with these kids. And you can see it. I mean, he's smart. He knows the game. These kids just, I think, a little more focus on what they're doing out there, and they're a formidable squad. They just got to stop the errors.
Maybe a little bit of a happy break on Canada Day will flip that around.
Possibly.
And that joyous celebration will get them in a good spirit. Someone else who's probably in a good spirit was Ricky Ray for the Toronto Argonauts. Had a fantastic debut to the season this past weekend. A couple of surprising results overall in the opening weekend of CFL action. What was the most surprising for you, Lance Phillips?
The most surprising was the fact that Ricky Ray had a career-high 506 yards. He completed 78% of his passes. And the Toronto Argonauts beat up on the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And if not for a couple of dropped touchdown passes, that beat up was a full-on rout in Argoland in front of 13,000 fans. And don't forget, Hamilton's not that far away, so a lot of people made the trek up to Toronto to see that game from Hamilton. They need to get more fans out, but the most surprising thing is what the Argos did. And consider, they've had Pop and Tressman for a total of 4 months. These guys have only been in the fold for 4 months, and they've turned the team around from a 5-13 team last year. Impressive.
I also think what's impressive with Ricky Ray is he's not a young guy, 37 years old. Obviously, you see other QBs that are in their late 30s perform at this level in the CFL. But the guy's been through a lot of injuries over the past couple of years. And there was even some doubt kind of coming into the season how good a starting QB he would be. Seems like he's kind of turned that around.
I think that was put to rest.
Yeah.
I think that was put to rest.
I think so too.
And one thing that the Argonauts struggled with last season was their offensive line. It wasn't fantastic. There's definitely been an improvement after when you watch yesterday. Yeah, he still took some hits. Definitely improvement. Listen to some of these stats. DeVere Posey, 7 receptions, 147 yards. S.J. Green, that's a whole nother topic, 7 receptions for 124. And Jeff Fuller, 3 receptions, 104 yards. S.J. Green had nearly 100 yards by the half. And some of the stuff that he did was incredible. The Toronto Argonauts are going to surprise a lot of teams this year. They are my pick to be in the CFL's Grey Cup.
I think so, and I think that the West is still a stronger division than the East.
I agree.
So they have that opportunity to kind of beat up on teams in the East and really get a lot of wins that way. I think the one thing least surprising about the weekend is Riders fans being unhappy.
That's not surprising.
That's going to continue, I think, unfortunately.
We may have a tweet about that.
Yeah.
That's for sure. The NHL draft was on the weekend. 7 rounds of player bliss. How would you like to go to the NHL draft and not be selected? Just don't go. If you don't think you're going to go in the top 3 rounds, don't go. These poor kids. Anyways, which team, Josh Ryan, do you think made out the best from the Canadian side?
Well, I'm going to obviously be biased here, but it's my Calgary Flames. They had a fantastic draft. With Yakima,
You're a fanboy.
He's a great Finnish defenseman, young 18-year-old, has a strong overall game. And not just drafting, they traded for Travis Hamonic, a trade I didn't like at first, but considering looking at his more advanced stats, his consistency, and his contract he's on right now, they now have the deepest blue line of any Canadian team, by far. And they still have plenty of talent up front. There's a couple other teams that I think did well in this draft, mostly out west, but I think the Flames came away the best out of all of them.
That Travis Hamonic trade is going to pay dividends for the Calgary Flames.
They will.
He needed to get out of New York. He wanted to be closer to his family, who's in Canada anyways. He was hoping to go to a Western Canadian team. He got his wish. That move out of New York, out of Long Island, will make him a better player. I believe he will be a better defenseman in Calgary, which is hard to believe. But look at some of the guys he's playing with. Mark Giordano. I could go on, but I'm not going to.
TJ Brody.
Yes, exactly.
I know my team.
The team that I believe had the best draft were the Edmonton Oilers. And they did it without a lottery pick. Who would have thought they could actually do that?
True. But I think the problem there, as good as Kyler Yamamoto is, there's some doubt still about how he'll perform at this level because he is a smaller player, sitting around 5. He says he's 5'8". He might actually be 5'7",
146.
He might be smaller.
But there's another player that plays for your Calgary Flames who's not a very big guy. His name's Johnny Gaudreau.
He's a little bigger than that.
He's 5'9", 140, 157. So he weighs a whopping 11 pounds more. Listen, the key from Calgary came in the 5th round, the 146th overall. Kirill Maximov, he's a right winger from Russia, 6'2", 190 pounds. Started the year with Saginaw Spirit. Left, was traded to the Niagara Ice Dogs where he really excelled. In 29 games, 22 points. I really like what this kid can do. And he did that on a team that was bounced in the first round of the playoff by the Peterborough Petes. The Niagara Ice Dogs are not a great team. But Kirill Maximov is a good player, and he's going to be the one that really is good for the Oilers.
And I wonder now, with you look at such a low expectation coming out of the draft from Montreal, obviously the Leafs are such a young team, loaded with talent now. I think regardless of whether these picks turn out, they're going to be good for a couple of years.
Fair enough.
Habs might be in a little bit of trouble. They don't have a lot of firepower in that lineup or a lot of size, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Something that had firepower in many different ways was the NBA draft. That really destroyed the internet over the weekend, including along with the NHL draft. But so many trades, so many surprising picks in that first round. Of course, the Knicks being the Knicks, and Cleveland being Cleveland. That being said, these are players who haven't played a day in the NBA yet. Do you think that's a little bit overblown, how much attention has been covered on these moves and these draft picks?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
You can't make any judgments until these kids and these players play a game in their new uniforms. And not just one game. Let them have a half a season at minimum to see where they're at. Yes, it's way overblown. You can speculate based off their NCAA performances or performances they've had at previous teams, Jimmy Butler as an example. But you can't judge who won the Chicago Bulls Minnesota Timberwolves trade until these guys play with these teams. Jimmy Butler might be a bust in Minnesota. You don't know that. And that's the thing about some of these trades. You can't know until you see it. And sometimes it takes more than half a year. Sometimes it takes 2 years or more to figure this out.
Yeah, I do disagree with you that I don't believe.
Of course you do.
I don't believe there's any chance Jimmy Butler is going to be a bust in Minnesota. He perfectly fits their system. He loves their coach, Tom Thibodeau, who had him in Chicago before Thibodeau was fired and then went to become the GM and the coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves. Butler's also fits right into their roster at the moment, and he's a very versatile player.
What does that mean, fits into their roster?
Because they needed
like they had a spot and they put him in? Oh, he fits.
It's literally
like
he is literally the guy they were missing, a guy who can be great on the offensive end and score buckets late in games and shut down the other team's best player. They did not have a guy like that before. And ultimately, they weren't that happy with Chris Dunn, Zach LaVine with his ACL tear. The Bulls, may end up getting a value out of those two later on, but then to pick Markkanen as their 7th pick, a guy who might not even be a great player, and give up a 16th pick is a little bit of a bad move on their part.
I'm surprised that the Lakers didn't pick LeVar Ball second.
Well, I mean,
he could beat Michael Jordan.
If you watched his reaction, it looked like they did pick him second.
Beat Michael Jordan one-on-one.
Well, if you hear stories behind the scenes, a lot of people that beat Michael Jordan one-on-one. No,
Chelsea Steinle joins us in studio next to talk about swimming and wrestlers volleyball.
She could talk. She could overtalk Michael Jordan.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
If you can't score, you might as well drop the gloves.
Welcome back to The Gloves Are Off. Lance Phillips, Josh Ryan, and Chelsea Steinle. It's good to have you here, my dear.
Thanks for having me.
Long time no see, Chelsea.
Very good to have you here. And you are involved in a ton of things. A few days. What do you mean a few days?
Yeah, we see each other.
Josh and I see each other.
Yeah, beach volleyball.
What's going on here?
She's one of the first people I met in town, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to Quentin about this.
Yeah, we actually had a going away party for Josh when he thought he was going away, and then he wasn't. And it was really funny.
When did you think you were going away?
After my practicum.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and then Quentin, her husband Quentin, was very annoyed that I got a cake, even though
because we had a farewell Josh cake at our house. We kind of love Dairy Queen cakes with our volleyball team, so my co-ed volleyball team, not the wrestlers, and then. So we had a farewell cake for Josh, and then he actually said, well, I kind of feel embarrassed now because I actually found out today I'm not going away.
That was your plan the whole time, just to get a cake?
Yeah.
I mean, that would have, if I had known I was getting a cake, I totally would have planned that.
Quentin, we're going to get you a cake, too.
Yeah.
We are going to get you a cake as well, just for something, just to get him a cake, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got a lot on the go.
Yeah.
You have a family, you've got, you're doing athletics yourself. And recently I was at the Junior Rebels swim meet.
Yeah.
I was doing a story on Chantal Marmalek.
Yeah.
How much fun do you get out of that whole scene?
Out of the Rebels?
Yeah.
I really love it. It's kind of interesting that we ended up in that because I was not a swimmer. I took some lessons when I was younger, but I'd never competed. And the year we joined, just my daughter joined, and she had quit hockey that year because her brother had moved up, so they weren't on the same team anymore. And she was kind of driving me crazy, to be honest, because she has a lot of energy. So I'm like, what am I going to put this kid in? She didn't want to do soccer, and she wasn't really enjoying her dance classes. So a friend of mine said, well, you should put her in the Rebels for the spring-summer season. And I'm like, well, like swimming, like don't they just like swim laps the whole time? That sounds like torture to me. And they're like, no, kids love it, you should do it. So I was like, okay. So I'm like, Shay, we're gonna join swimming. And she's like, awesome, because she loves the pool.
Right.
And yeah, she loved it. And I couldn't believe like the strides kids make so quick under, like they have amazing coaches and
they do
just develop this immense love of the water in them. And yeah, last year we forced my son to join. He was very bad at me for the first 3 weeks. And I said, you do 1 season and then I'll feel really good about how strong a swimmer you are at the lake. And if you hate it, you never have to do it again. And after his first swim meet, he was hooked. He said he was already talking about what swims he'd be allowed to do next year. And I'm like, oh, next year, hey. And he's like, well, if I join. And I'm like, okay. So yeah.
Totally
so
join.
Just shows like he did not want any part of it. And he's loving it. He was so excited to start up again this year.
Why do you think they got hooked so fast? Like, what's the appeal other than just being in the water's fun?
I don't really know. No, I'm just kidding. I think that they get the team dynamic and whatnot, even though it's not like a team sport per se. But they go when their friends are there and they're visiting, and then they're all these ultra competitive kids, and they push each other to be better in the pool, because even when they're doing warm-ups, you can see them and when they get in that water, they're going to try and pass the person ahead of them.
That's awesome.
And and the coaches just do a fantastic job. Like every year, I'm just blown away by the amount of kids who join and then stay, and the club's just growing every year. So. Yeah.
Well, even just to take Chantal as an example, who was deathly afraid of the water, and to have her doing 25 meters on a flutter board.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, and she loved it. I mean, when she came out of the pool, she was super excited.
And you can see her; she's always smiling at the pool, like she's excited, and everyone talks to her, and she loves talking to everybody. And it's more than just getting in the pool and swimming. Yeah, for sure.
That's where coaches are. Coaches like that are instrumental.
Yeah.
They can make people feel good about. Yeah. Who cares what their time is?
Yeah.
As long as they're having fun, that's so important.
Well, and Denise, as a head coach, is amazing at that. I mean, even, recently, like Maddox broke his arm. You guys talked about that on your segment.
We're going to get to that.
We're going to transition to that very soon.
And, he was coming with me and watching Shay practice, and I don't know if you know upstairs at the pool, but he, pretty much had his head, like, squished between the bars trying to see better. And his one coach, Corey, would walk by and he'd be yelling, Corey, Corey. And I'm like, oh, this poor kid, it's just torture. And Denise noticed and she said, you know, why don't you tell him to come down on the deck? He can still be coached out of the water, and then he can be a part of it still. So I told Maddox, you know, Denise invited you to go down on the deck if you want, and he was like thrilled. Awesome. And it's been so cute watching him. You know, they've given him a clipboard, and all of a sudden I'm like, he just looks like a grown-up coach with his little clipboard, and he's there, and he comes out and he actually says, like, I actually learned a lot today, Mom, like more than I do in the water sometimes, because you don't always hear what your coach is trying to get to you when you're in the water. So yeah, he's really enjoyed that, and it just shows that it's, you know, the coaches, they really know all their kids and they take the time for them. So,
that is awesome.
Yeah. And it's been quite the transition for him, obviously, as you alluded to earlier with that breaking arm incident. What has the last couple of weeks been like?
Like we showed that video of it. I feel like it gained some traction.
Well, he's really hoping it'd go viral. I actually group messaged the wrestler girls, and you know, because they're younger than me, so I'm like, girls, make this go viral. Maddox, it's important to them. They're like, okay, we're on it. But yeah, the last few weeks have been hard. The first week was the worst because it was like every day a new thing dawned on him that he wasn't able to participate in. So the first night it was like swimming, and he was supposed to be starting with Kyle Tapp on the ice that week too. So he knew those two things were out for a bit. And our first, you know, at first they thought the cast would be anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks. Luckily, he actually gets it off on Monday this week, so it's actually only been 3 weeks, as long as the x-ray comes back good, so thank goodness. But yeah, but every day, I mean, then the next day he was supposed to participate in the Kids of Steel Triathlon that ATV just recently put on. And, you know, last year he got bronze as an individual in that, and he was really, really excited to compete again because he was going to be the oldest this year in his age division. And yeah, it just sucks because every day this poor kid, and then his sister would go out and jump on the trampoline, and he's like, can I go do that? And I'm like, no, because the first week he only had a half hard cast, so the other side was soft, and I'm like, if you fall on that, it's gonna break through again, you know, like we were lucky it was a buccal fracture, so they didn't have to set the bone because it was still intact. But I said it, like the doctor said, if you fall on it again, it's probably going to break through, and then you're going to be in the hospital getting your arms set. So no trampoline. And yeah, but once we got the full cast on, he's had a little more leeway, so he's been a little more bearable. And then going on the swim deck has helped, and he's gone to his sprint training now because I'm not concerned about it. And yeah.
Have you ever broken a bone?
I have broke 2 toes. One this year, actually.
Have you?
I've never actually broken a bone.
I haven't
separated
either,
everything. I've sprained everything, but never broken.
How do you? Because you were an athletic guy, and I was the same. When I played a ton of sports when I was a kid, I've never broken a bone. How do people like you and I go through and not get that done?
Well, I think separations are still. I've separated a few ribs. I think those are in some ways.
Separate a rib, they're attached, aren't they?
Yeah, I separated 3 at the same time.
My husband dislocated his shoulder this winter, and I've never seen him in pain like that. So that's one thing. I've never done a separation, and or a dislocation, and I hope I never do.
You are planning on coming back and playing another year of Wrestlers Volleyball. So you're proudly displaying the Wrestlers shirt today.
Represent.
Yeah, for sure. How much were you planning on doing that originally, or did this year kind of be like, all right, I'm coming back?
No, I mean, I think Austin, like, he kept kind of probing me through the year, like, so, you know, because he kind of asked after preseason was done, asked all the rookies, like, so what do you think? You think you'll stay and be a wrestler? And, you know, I told him from the very get-go, because you know, I said I'd try it for a year. My circumstances are obviously unique, being older and having kids and a job and a life outside of, you know, just graduating high school. So I said it's hard for me to dedicate myself for more than 1 year. I said, like, I will give you 1 year for sure. I won't quit on you or whatever, but I can't guarantee anything past that. And he said, yeah, well, we'll make it work. It's really hard for me to sign somebody for just 1 year, which I totally understand. You're trying to build for something always in the college athletics. But yeah, we made it work for a year. And I literally didn't really give him an answer until I think the night we were celebrating nationals at home. And you know, it just hit me how big it all was, and I'm like, how can I not play 1 more year? You know, like it's for me, it will be like the last year I can. You know, like, well, never say never, but you know, like the other girls, like they could always like quit for a couple of years and come back, like, you know, nothing's stopping them. So, but yeah, for me, it was like, well, you know, like after this, I'm off to Saskatoon to finish my degree, and yeah, like it's just going to get harder and harder. My kids are busier and busier, and eventually, hopefully, I'm heading to universities to watch them play something. So,
what's been the biggest challenge over the past year? Because obviously, I mean, you've been helped by how supportive your family's been. But what's been the biggest challenge through that process?
I think just change, like the adjustment. I don't always do well with that, which is funny because I'm always trying new things, but I tend to throw myself into these things and then about a month in go, why did I do this? So yeah, about a month in I was saying that. I remember, it was just tough to adjust. It was a lot of exercise too. My body hadn't been used to that for quite some time, probably since I was 18. I mean, I've stayed active, but not that many hours a day. So yeah, that took its toll. I definitely was icing everything all the time. The kids did phenomenal at first, actually. Like, I kind of thought that was going to be the hardest part of it, but they shaded fine the whole time. Maddox was a little bit by the end, like, okay, like, when do we get you back, you know? But yeah, shaded awesome, and she loves the girls and everything. But for me, yeah, just the change, about a month in, I said to Quentin, because he was the one that kind of pushed me into this and loved his college sports experience. So I said, like, the one night I'm like, and I had been really positive, like, yeah, I'm really enjoying it. But in the back of my head, I was kind of like, am I though? Like, because I'm kind of dreading, like, going to the gym, and I'm kind of dreading icing, and, you know, like, the whole thing was a lot to adjust to. And I said to him, like, did you love everything when you played college sports? And he's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, like, were you always excited for practice? And were you always, like, gung-ho about it all? And he thought for a minute, and he's like, yeah, I loved it all. Like, I loved every minute.
No, I thought she was going to say.
I was like, oh, God. Because I was like, and he's like, why? And I'm like, I don't know if I am loving it all. But no, like, after that, definitely after preseason was done and my body kind of adjusted and, you know, like, the team kind of started settling into each other and being more comfortable, and I adjusted to my class load and everything else, so, and my schedule. So then I started really enjoying it. And then I started like, yes, practice is at this time, and I was excited to go, and I was excited to see like improvements. And I think that first month too, I had never played as a middle player with a quick game. I had always hit high balls when I played middle, and I had spent most of the last few years playing on the outside. So getting back to the middle and having to adjust to the speed of the college level and to hitting these 51s that I had never really tried to hit, and I'm not always the most coordinated person. It was a lot. So it was a lot of frustration with myself too. I think was hard at practice, just feeling like I couldn't do what we were doing, and so that doubt. And then once that started to fall away, I could enjoy it a lot more. So yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I can't imagine what it would be like for me to try and go back and play college sports right now.
I think it would be fun. It would just be a little painful at first.
Yeah,
totally.
It was.
Age catches up with you quick. Like when you're not, you know what I mean? When there's a point, I feel like there's a point when all of a sudden your body does not recover the way it used to.
Yeah,
and you
I think
feel
that's 30.
that. I feel strongly that's the case.
Well, great, because I'm 27 and that is not feeling good at all already.
Oh, yeah.
Holy
Josh,
geez,
maybe
man.
you're hitting it early.
No, that's not good.
you're on the decline.
Very, very
You're going
much.
down the hill fast.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I think about.
Are you going to be able to get out of that chair when we're done here?
Well, probably not, because of my hamstring.
We need the forklifts.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's kind of cool though to know that other than one person, that team is totally intact for the upcoming season.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that was part of me saying like, well, like, you know, I think if a lot of people were going and it was going to be a building year, not that would be a reason not to play, but for me it was like, oh, but we have another crack at nationals with this team. Like, how do you not, you know, like, and I just know that if I'm sitting on the couch watching them, I'm going to be like, why didn't I go? So, yeah.
I can't wait for that season to start up again.
Yeah, hard not to want to play.
You probably can't wait either.
Yeah, no, I'm enjoying my time off for sure, and the kids are enjoying it, but it's been nice. Like, we've had beach, and when it's been cold out, we've been going to do drop-in at Lakeland just to touch the ball a bit. And yeah, I miss playing every day.
That's really great.
The girls seem pretty hungry too. You guys seem ready to take another crack. Like, they're not satisfied with just having won once.
No, and I know that everyone says it's harder to defend a title than to get one in the first place. So, you know, like last year we were definitely considered underdogs, or Cinderella story or whatever you want to call it, but no, this year people will be out for blood when they play us. Yeah. So, but me personally, I'm excited about that. I love competition. Like at Nationals, I was surprised. I wasn't really nervous. I just enjoyed it all. Like I was like, yes, this is awesome. And when girls were staring me down through the net, I'd smile. I'm like, yeah, right on. I hope you're trying to intimidate me now. Like, this is great. I love that. I love beating people when they play their very best, you know. Like,
that's awesome.
To me, if people aren't trying against us and we win, it doesn't mean as much. So I'm glad. I hope everyboing bringing their A game against us next year.
They're going to have to. They're going to have to.
They're definitely going to have to.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's going to make, having that win on your belt, the team is a year older as well, right? Everyone's used to each other. I can't wait to see that gym for the first few games. I can imagine it'll be pretty full.
Yeah, hopefully. I hope it does some good things for the crowds there in the athletics department. So.
It definitely will. Chesley, thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah,
really
appreciate
having you in. We're glad to have you in, and you're the second wrestler volleyball female to join us here, which is great. Yeah. Coming up on the other side, it's Albert.
He stuffed again with tweets.
Yeah, no, he's totally stuffed. Yeah. No, well, that's like a turkey, though. It's like a turkey stuff. Yeah.
We're back, and the gloves are still off.
You trying to time that out?
Yeah, and I missed.
You have a long arm reach, though. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, I played volleyball. It's a good arm for
Albert,
volleyball.
he's crunked. Isn't that what all the cool kids say now? He's crunked. He was crunked.
Well, clearly I'm not cool then, because Blake, our producer Blake says 10 years ago that was what the cool kids said.
Okay.
So we're way behind, apparently. Someone who's not behind is Matt Shinetti from TSN.
Yeah, this is awesome.
He says he swore a lot. This is the response to Chris O'Leary saying, "I'd pay dollars to hear what Durant said to the Riders sideline after a win." And
that was when the Riders beat the Alouettes.
Yeah.
The Alouettes beat the Riders, pardon me, and he went over by the Saskatchewan sideline, and Shinetti said he swore a lot.
If you lip read, it's pretty obvious. Pretty obvious.
This is from Sportsnet. At Sportsnet, Pro Hall of Famer Warren Sapp will donate his brain for medical research. I'm not sure if that's good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, there's so many other substances involved there outside of just
I'm not sure what you can really draw from a block of cement. I have no idea what you can draw from that.
I don't know.
In all seriousness,
you know what they'll be able to study? Stubbornness is what they'll be able to study out of that brain.
In all seriousness, it is good because he's saying he is feeling the effects of brain trauma, essentially playing football. So that kind of thing is great
to have as a resource.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, more players should do that kind of thing.
For sure.
You're dead.
His particular his brain, though, there's other substances there that I don't know could have affected it. At Darren Titian, so Dutch, or at Dutch SC, I should say.
Does it say I ripped my suit?
Well, no, not this time.
Blew my suit apart?
But before he talks about ripping his suit, he says all these greasy backdoor deals seems appropriate for Vegas.
Doesn't it though?
It does.
Didn't it though? Like all those deals during
really
the expansion draft, like just totally.
Totally fits with a city that was spawned by crime, essentially, the mafia.
Hey, this is Chris King at Kinger Chris from Lloydminster, Lakeland Rustlers basketball.
Kinger.
Starting this week, we are going to see what our women's basketball team does for the summer when they aren't student athletes. First up, and I believe that first up was Angela Barron.
Male in the beak.
She was one of the most improved players on the team, I thought, last year. And so this is also, again, from Kinger. She works at Prairie's Edge Land Development, at Lucian Lake. Her job consists of outside work in the landscaping department. You can see there she's...
Buddy, she is built like
I was going to say,
look at her.
You can see in this picture, she's got some tries.
She's the fittest girl on that team, without question.
And she was pretty lean last year.
She was very lean. She looks like she's built there even. The shoulder muscles are incredible.
That bodes really well, returning guard coming in like that.
This is Trevor Harris at Trev Harris, of course, the quarterback for the Ottawa Redblacks. Just saw the CFL Top 50. The fact that at B. Sinopoli, which is Brad Sinopoli, and a few other Red Blacks are not on the list is absolutely laughable. I'm going to say he didn't like that selection of the top 50.
That's a good assumption by you.
I like it when players speak out about things like that.
I do. Although, I mean, you're always going to get that when some guys are left off the list. You're never going to make everyone
I wonder if he would make that point if he was still playing for the Toronto Argonauts about Brad Sinopoli.
Possibly.
No chance.
From at BBICKS29, what a way to go out. Had an amazing time with the family at the NHL Awards last night at Cascanet, at NHL, at NHL Canes, at Chicago Blackhawks. And yeah, I mean, that's been one of the coolest stories in the NHL last year.
You know, everyone was making quips about, you know, the funny things that happened at the NHL Awards and the awkward, but entertainment doesn't have to be funny. No. Entertainment can be compelling, and that's what Brad and Amanda Bickle provided, was compelling entertainment when they got up there on stage and spoke in front of the massive crowd there at I forgot the name of the arena, Vegas Arena. Anyways,
I'll also throw in the Craig Anderson and his wife had another great moment as well. I mean, there are a lot of great moments,
and those to me were the best moments.
Let's do this time.
Thanks. You mind if I go?
Yeah, I'll let you go. I just love tweets, man.
This is from Claire Hanna at CLA Hanna. So that's Claire Hanna,
former member of the New Cap team.
She was a former member of the New Cap team, now a member of the Global Saskatoon team. FYI, non-volleyball people, this is a big deal. Like going to the conference final in the NHL, or a 4 dating an 8. Of course, that, speaking of the World League Volleyball, where Canada won 3-1 there, and that was a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so they get to play in the top 6, which for all intents and purposes, this is essentially a perennial non-playoff team in the NHL, suddenly, like Nashville, being one of the best teams in the world. They're competing against Brazil, Italy, countries where volleyball is part of the blood of that sport. So it's an awesome accomplishment. They're right there with the States, with Russia, with all these better funded countries. And and they only have a few returning players. So it's actually a team of kids in that group. So it's a really great result for them. Here's a favorite of ours, at Jeopardy Sports. The question, this NBA player is getting passed around the league faster than a joint.
Oh, Dwight Howard.
Very good.
Oh, yeah, you have to know
Although the correct answer is, what is Dwight Howard?
What or who? I like what better, actually.
What is Dwight Howard is the answer.
All right, take it easy. Take it easy, Albert. Pittsburgh Penguins at Penguins. Bye-bye, Marc-Andre Fleury.
That picture is so gloriously awkward, man.
It is, right?
I don't think there's few more gloriously awkward pictures than that result. I hope he has a great time in Vegas. I think he will. I think he'll have a good
Vegas.
scene. And we'll end another one from Claire Hanna. How to tell you live in Sask. You go to the dentist and the entire office is sporting Riders gear.
Oh, I love it.
That kind of sums up.
Coming up on the other side, we got a new segment for you. It's going to be fun.
Should be fun.
If you can't score, you might as well drop the gloves.
Thanks for joining us. Lance Phillips, Josh Ryan with you. This new segment, we were debating off camera. We still really didn't have a name for it, so we've been debating off camera about it. And we finally settled on
what we learned.
What we've learned, something like that.
What we learned this weekend.
Yeah, we'll go with what we learned.
We learn a lot every weekend, but I think it's nice to kind of highlight a couple of those main things.
Yeah, so we'll talk about those things that we learned over the past week in sports and
share them with you.
Yes, of course. It may not be great lessons.
Oh, I think they're
somewhat unteachable.
I think they're going to be very important lessons, personally. So we're going to start with Lance Phillips' lessons that he learned. Okay. And Lance, what did this past weekend of Chuck's? What did that taught us blank?
That taught us that you can't keep a good man down. In that Eric Perry, the outrider for Chris Molley, amongst others, was back in the saddle riding again this weekend with his jaw wired shut. So, KO'd essentially in the first week of CPCA season, had to be rushed to hospital, lost a bunch of teeth. We've talked about this before. He was back in the saddle. He was hoping to be back for Calgary, and he was back there. You cannot keep a good man down. That is what I learned this weekend.
Fair enough.
Amongst other things, and the other thing I will mention is that, and I tweeted this out, that some of the best people I have met since being here are the CPCA people and the people involved with it, riders, outriders, people involved with the CPCA, all wonderful people. Josh Ryan, the NBA draft weekend taught you?
That taught me that apparently everyone in the NBA is fine with Golden State and Cleveland winning the next 5 to 10 titles.
Explain.
Because you have Cleveland, who's gotten all these discount players from being bought out by other teams for little value. Now it looks like Dwayne Wade is going to be bought out along with Carmelo Anthony, who can then sign a minimum with Cleveland. And then the Golden State Warriors, who are already clearly better than everyone else. Chicago sells them their late round, first round pick for cash. So Golden State, who's made more money than anyone this year, gets to pay a small amount of money for another late first-round pick, Jordan Bell, who could be a quality contributing player off the bench this year.
You're fired up about this.
Cheap contract. I want parity in this league, and there's going to be no parity because these two teams are going to destroy everyone again.
May I chime in?
Sure.
It taught me that the LA Lakers are not going to make the playoffs.
Well,
They're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Their best player, they traded away to the Nets in D'Angelo Russell. He's their best producer. But the better thing is that they've kept Nick Young on. Nick Young is a 30-something-year-old guy who likes to talk about his exploits with women to young players like D'Angelo Russell. Great fit for bringing Lonzo Ball and his dad in. Actually, his dad probably goes on about that.
The only relevant thing about him is his name, Swaggy P. Because his
name
self-named Swaggy P. That's the only relevant thing about Nick Young as a player.
What a joke that guy is. Self-named.
Self-named.
All right, Josh.
What else? Another thing, Lance. Watching the Jays recently, but this whole season has taught you blank.
That they are not going to keep Josh Donaldson. Wow. Josh Donaldson is going to be traded by the Blue Jays because they are not going to make a run at the Eastern Conference or a wild card. They are going to be done. They are not going to be able to keep his contract. They're going to unload him to get younger players, more draft picks. He's not going to stay.
You don't think there's a chance that they can make a run in the next 2 weeks and still catch up?
No. I don't think they have the team to do it. I don't think they have the pitching to do it. Unless the only chance they have is they get these guys back from the disabled list. Guys like Aaron Sanchez, and they get all these guys back. Until that happens, they're dead in the water, literally.
That's really depressing, but I don't know if I can totally disagree.
The Vegas expansion draft, Josh Ryan, taught you.
It taught me that all that hope we had about this team being competitive right away is not going to happen. They're just a little bit too young. There's a couple of players they left off their roster I think they could have gotten. And all those backdoor deals, as much as that might pave the way for them being stronger in the future because of the draft picks they get out of it, they're not going to have a competitive enough roster to compete this year. I don't think they're going to be terrible because Marc-Andre Fleury is a good goaltender and the Coyotes are an abomination. So they're going to be better than the Phoenix Coyotes.
All those backdoor deals are going to make them do exactly that. Walk out the back door after games because nobody, you've got to get away from fans that'll be so angry at how bad you are. They're terrible. Will they be the worst team in the league? No, they weren't. No. The Phoenix Coyotes are an absolute mess. And by Phoenix, I mean Arizona Coyotes are an absolute mess, but they're still a bad team. They may be second worst.
And there's one or two teams in the East who could end up being terrible as well. Oh. And a really quick one. First week in CFL taught you blank.
One man's trash is another man's treasure. Bear Woods, S.J. Green. That's what I'm talking about.
Good
Coming up on the next side, what's bugging you?
Way to stick to...
We're back. You can keep your gloves on, but ours are off.
What's bugging you, Josh Ryan? What is bugging you? I got something that's bugging me big time.
That's pretty not normal.
No, I'm never usually bugged by anything. What's bugging you?
Oh, well, there is something that's bugging me this weekend. Or this week, I should say. So some of you may have recently seen, if you follow TSN Sportsnet, that kind of thing, that people are in a little bit of an uproar over John McEnroe. He was promoting his new book. He was on a radio station, was asked a question about Serena Williams, and as mentioned, she's the greatest female tennis player of all time, asked about her place as the greatest tennis player of all time, and went into further elaboration saying that she would probably be, on the men's side, she would probably be ranked something like 700th. And people took a lot of offense to that. And I just don't understand why this is always such an outrage. First of all, Serena Williams herself said that if she played on the men's side, she wouldn't do well. She would get crushed, lose to Novak Djokovic, Rafael Nadal in like 10 minutes. Second, if it's his opinion, he was asked his opinion about an athlete, and he just called her the greatest female tennis player of all time. So it's not enough to call her the greatest female tennis player of all time. You now need to say, well, she's the greatest athlete, period, of all time, is another whole conversation that he just doesn't happen to think she is. So why are you making such a big deal? This happens every single time a female athlete comes up in conversation. And I understand that female athletes have been marginalized and haven't been under-promoted, and that's starting to finally change a little bit for the better. But every time this outrage stuff happens, drives me crazy. He said his opinion in an interview. If you don't like his opinion, don't listen to him. It's that simple.
You're like a polite guy who rants.
Well, I'm sorry. I was raised to be polite, I guess.
I can tell when you get fired up because you start to tense up. And I don't see it very much because you're normally, just very subdued.
Like
you and I are very different in that regard.
Yes, true.
But I like that. I thought that was good. That was entertaining. That was compelling, entertaining television right there.
That's the first time anyone has said that to me ever.
I'm going to tell you what's bugging me.
All right.
What's bugging me is Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is bugging me. Stephen A. Smith is sickening to listen to. First of all, if it's not enough that during the Ray Rice fiasco where he beat his wife unconscious in an elevator, Stephen A. Smith at that point said that women shouldn't provoke men to be violent against them.
That was very poorly
What is the matter with you? First of all, he keeps his job after that. That's the first problem. Now, recently, he said in First Take that Phil Jackson's first move was to sign Lamar Odom, who is on crack. Not who was on crack, who is on crack. And he said it twice. What is with this guy and his disparaging comments? Why does this guy still have a job? That's like me saying, the first thing that Newcap did was hire Josh Ryan because he's mentally unstable. And I'm not saying you are. Don't get me wrong.
I kind of am. But anyway,
but you know what I'm saying? Or that's like hiring Josh Ryan who suffers from depression or something like that. Like, it's totally not right. You can't do that kind of stuff. And the fact that he keeps his job says a lot to me about what ESPN stands for. And they stand for people who are like this, who are intolerant of other people, who have no empathy for other people. And personally, that is not a type of an organization that I would want to work for if those are the type of people they're going to employ. Stephen A. Smith is a joke. The fact that he actually brings guys like LeVar Ball on and they get into a screaming match on television, that's not compelling TV. That's garbage TV. And that's what I have to say today.
On your rating of most annoying personalities on TV, has he surpassed Skip Bayless?
Yes, he is. He is definitely the most annoying TV personality, just because of the way he talks, how loud he gets, and he makes himself out to be this guy who sits on this high pedestal, and he's not. He's a guy who sits much lower than regular people.
Yeah. He did once say totally he would have won the O.J. Simpson trial, and he's not even a lawyer.
Put him in jail. Throw him in jail.
Ooh, good hot takes today, Lance.
Thanks for watching. See you in 7 days, and Josh Ryan might wear sunglasses next time.
Yeah.